Hi everybody, this is Skip Elsheimer, and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show, where we ignore the headlines and bury our heads deep in footage from our past, 16mm films from our past. And footage that we just saw was a home movie from nearly 70 years ago of the Feinberg. And it looked like there was celebration. I liked all the kids bellied up to the bar, drinking cocktails, primarily 7-Up, although I don't know what the darker liquids were that the kids were drinking. Probably Coca-Cola, given the popularity of that drink. Anyhow, we watch old 16mm films here, and we broadcast them out to the world. So the next film I got set up for you is Power and Wheels. Enjoy.
As you can see, Captain, the dominant form of life on this planet is not visible until we come in close. Those moving spots are what I mean.
So, intelligent life does exist on this planet. Our scientists will be pleased.
As you see, Captain, what we have here is a strange form of metallic life that travels on wheels, speeding over the trails that were visible at high altitude.
Fascinating. But what makes them move?
You'll see in a moment, Captain. There we are, Captain. All of these creatures take nourishment in liquid form, a high-energy diet that is burned up rapidly. The digestive system is amazingly intricate. Waste matter is expelled as a gas.
Hold it. Can we go back to where the creature is feeding?
Yes, sir, Captain.
Do we have a case of symbiotic life here?
You mean the human and the automobile? Yes, Captain. Symbiosis. The automobile is strongly attached to its host. It appears that the entire life cycle of the human is related to the automobile, from birth to death. The first experience humans have with automobiles is just after they are born. They usually are taken from their birthplace in a car, sometimes even born in a car. And at death, the body is usually transported in a car to a burial place. In between, well, Captain, there is much more. Watch, and you'll see. It started as a horseless carriage, built by carriage makers to look like a carriage, right down to the socket for a buggy whip. Automobile. The word means self-propelled vehicle, originally conceived as a substitute for the horse and buggy. Some were powered by steam, others by electricity. Then, propelled by the internal combustion engine, the automobile, in a short span of time, came to be something more than just another means of transportation. It became something to believe in.
This car takes care of me, and I take care of it.
Everything goes on wheels. You can't go anywhere without a car.
Working on cars always give me great satisfaction.
Car's a necessity. I couldn't earn my living without it.
But there are too many big cars for luxury and not for convenience.
Cars are a heck of a lot of fun. I enjoy mine tremendously.
Walking's fine, but it sure doesn't get you very far.
The modern car is a demonstration of technological skill.
Seatbelts?
Secured.
Ignition?
On.
Power door lock?
Affirmative.
Power seat adjustment?
Adjusted.
Power windows?
Check.
Adjustable steering column?
Adjusted.
Remote control mirror?
Check.
Air conditioning?
Adjusted.
Stereo system?
On.
For some, a car is a means of transportation. For others, it is a means of communication, an extension of the personality. Over a ton of iron and steel, glass, rubber, plastics, petroleum, and horsepower, designed to carry a man wherever his whim or fancy dictates. The automobile has, with certainty, transformed the social and cultural life of America. It has shortened not only geographical distance, but social distance as well. Before the automobile, the social distance between one man on wheels and another man on wheels was often quite apparent. The automobile closed this gap. Henry Ford's Tin Lizzie provided cheap transportation for everyone. It wasn't long before one man on wheels had the same distinction as another man on wheels. To this extent, the automobile brought concrete expression to democratic ideals. But ironically, the automobile also appeals to something entirely the opposite. The idea that one man, after all, is more successful than another, especially if he drives a faster, bigger, more expensive car. The car a man drives often seems to say for its owner, "Look at my car. Look who I am." Because the automobile appeals to something more than the need for transportation, it has become an extension of the personality. To drive a car today is to come of age. The automobile is just about the biggest event in a young person's life. Toy cars for the young. Later, automotive gadgets fitted to a bicycle. And always, that day to look forward to, a driver's license, the proof of entry into today's adult society. With an automobile and a license to drive it, a boy or girl comes of age. And coming of age means depending on the car for social advantage. Today, the car has displaced the home as a setting for courtship and social activity. But in providing increased mobility and convenience, the automobile has, at the same time, loosened traditional family ties. The technology that makes all of this possible is a byword for consumer prosperity. Factories, thanks to the assembly line, can put a large volume of cars and other goods on the market. And factories, through the vast market for automobiles and through organized labor, pay workers enough to buy cars. Nearly 1/6 of the nation's workforce today serves the automobile in manufacturing, maintenance, and selling. And the final product is desirable enough to cause a man to work long and hard in order to pay for a car, or other products that roll off assembly lines. The psychological attraction of the automobile is big, but in no way more important than the economy that builds around the automobile. Over 1/2 of the world's cars are driven in North America by roughly 1/20 of the world's population. Think of the jobs created by the automobile: road building, gasoline and oil refining, motels, the jobbing of parts and supplies, the hauling of cars from factory to showroom, parking lots. Not to mention the car salesman, who in his time has become a legend. And last but not least, there is the vital business of selling to customers on the road, an ever-expanding source of exotic roadside culture. Side by side with production and sales is maintenance and upkeep. An owner of Ford's Tin Lizzie could, more often than not, take his car apart and repair it himself. Today's cars require an army of specialists, both for manufacturing and for maintenance. In fact, many of today's drivers don't know how a car works. They rely on specialists, Some, of course, do it themselves. Those gifted machine-age tinkerers who understand the purr of an engine. Nowhere does mechanical genius contribute more to the glamour and excitement of the automobile than in the sport of racing. A sport that exaggerates to the limit the normal functions and upkeep of the automobile. Most curious of all automotive sport, the demolition derby, the vicarious spectacle that eases the average car owner's anxiety over the everyday hazards of the road. The modern car is a demonstration of practical technology, whether to test the limits of speed or safety, or determine the efficiency of new fuels. Man is constantly at play with automotive technology. For the automobile is in essence a form of idealized toy, practical, functional, necessary, an art form, styled to the ultimate preferences of the customer. But the fashions can change rapidly. Today's glittering bauble becomes tomorrow's scrap. From the beginning, the attraction of the automobile was that it allowed a man to go where he pleased. It enabled him to escape from the bonds of space and time. No longer was he dependent on timetables, trains, or trolleys. No longer was he bound to a destination that was not his own. But the car as a means of escape soon proved to be an illusion.
The lure of the open road can be not so alluring when it is shared with thousands of other drivers.
Learning about cars has traditionally been a man's interest. So, when things go wrong... But today, along with the boys, the woman driver is fast coming into her own. Regardless of who drives, it takes learning and skill to survive in this age of the car. And even if you learn the lessons well...
Mr. Cook, you're charged with failing to have control of your vehicle. How do you plead, sir? All right, sir. Plead guilty. The court will find you guilty, sir, sentence you pay a fine of $12.
The expressive vehicle called the automobile is not without problems.
For some, entering a car is the same as putting on a mask. People don't know who you are, so your car speaks for you. Some drivers express themselves in deadly ways. There are now more than 50,000 people killed on North American highways every year.
We can safely predict that the present trend in automotive fatalities will not show any significant downtrend in the near future, taking into consideration the factor of human psychology and the number of moving vehicles on the road today.
Much of the safety of driving a car rests with the self-control of the driver, but not all hazards of driving are his responsibility. Some follow from the sheer number of cars on the road. One man's convenience, another man's nuisance. Multiply that advantage by millions. One car owner can do little about the smog that accumulates from the exhaust of millions of automobiles. He cannot control the hazards of heavy traffic or alter the ability of his car to take the shock of collision. The driver must also rely, in part, on the organized protective efforts of others for his safety. A half-century ago, Henry Ford predicted that the automobile would doom the city. Cars will take people out of the cities, into the countryside, and keep them down on the farm. And the big movement has taken place, but in the opposite direction. Today, the same highways that lead automobiles away from cities also lead into cities, pouring more cars into already congested streets, displacing the pedestrian, dividing neighborhoods, befouling the air. Today, 30% of urban space is devoted to moving vehicles. If the use of automobiles continues to grow at the present rate, cities of the future may well be little more than ribbons of concrete interlaced with parking lots. Each age has its problems. Before the automobile, there was the horse. In 1899, Scientific American predicted that the automobile would solve the problem of filth in the streets caused by the horse.
The improvement in city conditions by the general adoption of the motor car can hardly be overestimated. Streets clean, dustless, and odorless, with rubber-tired vehicles moving swiftly and noiselessly will eliminate a greater part of the nervousness, distraction, and strain of modern metropolitan life.
The automobile solved the problems of the horse all right. Who will solve the problems of the automobile? How do you think they'll solve their problem, Captain?
I'm not sure. Perhaps we'll have to return another time to find out.
That film was whacked. That was crazy. And I'm trying to figure out where they would show that film. I mean, it would be shown in schools. It was meant for, they say, secondary school, high school, or college, but it wouldn't be shown in driver's ed, I don't think. It would be kind of looking at American culture and technology. So I'm not sure where it would have been shown. It's kind of... Excuse me, kind of crazy. I like films like that though. I especially like films that have aliens looking at our planet and coming up with something. There was a whole bunch of science films called Mission Earth that did that. But this predates Star Wars because I've always thought that educational filmmakers use Star Wars, the gimmickry of science fiction in Star Wars to show educational films, and just weren't really good at it. Kind of like how you use clowns or puppets or whatever, mimes. But that one was fascinating. So yeah, all right. So behind me I have a Tell Us Any setup and a film setup. Why we have laws. Enjoy.
Once upon a time, there was a king who liked to make rules. There were rules about tulips and rules about roses. There were rules about eyebrows and rules about noses. Rules about keys and rules about locks. rules about shoes, and rules about socks. Everybody in the country had to do what the rules said.
Except me!
In that country lived 3 friends who didn't like so many rules. There was Shiver, who was always cold. He loved to warm himself by a fire.
No fires in January, February, or March. Fires are for the summer.
But the king had so many rules about where and when and how to make fires that most of the time Shiver was cold. Shiver had a friend called Gobble. He was always hungry. But the king had many rules about eating.
No eating cookies with your left hand. Apples are for Thursday, and absolutely no donuts in the kingdom.
The third friend was called Snore. He loved to sleep.
What? No sleeping while walking. And the only person in this kingdom who can snore is His Majesty, the King.
One day, these 3 friends made up their minds to go away. They set out to find a place where they could live without any rules. Finally, they found a lovely wild land where there were no rules at all. And here they settled down. They built their houses the way they wanted. They planted their garden the way they wanted. One day, Gobble was hungry. He went to an apple tree in Snore's garden and filled his basket with apples.
Wait a minute. Those are my apples.
I can eat whatever I want. We don't have any rules about what to eat and what not to eat.
If you come near my apple tree again, I'll hit you.
One day, on his way home, Shiver made a big fire right near Gobble's house.
You can't make a fire there. You're scorching my donut.
I can make a fire wherever I want. We don't have any rules about fires.
That is for your fire, and that's for you.
Now, for a while, Snore was happy in the land without rules, but his neighbors weren't.
I can't stand that snoring any longer. Listen, you're keeping me up at night. Either stop snoring or cover your head with pillows. I can snore all I want. We don't have any rules about that here.
This made Shiver so angry that he made a giant noisemaker out of pots and pans.
If you keep me awake, I'll keep you awake too.
So matters went from bad to worse in the wild land without any rules. Because there were no rules against taking other people's apples, Snore was so busy guarding his apple tree, he didn't dare take his afternoon nap. Whenever he snored at night, the noisemaker woke him up. He was sleepier than ever. Gobble was so busy putting out Shiver's fires that he hardly had time to grow food in his garden. He was hungrier than ever. And Shiver was colder than ever.
Listen, something must be done. We came here because we didn't like the king's rules. But now I'm just as hungry as ever.
And I'm just as cold. And I'm twice as sleepy.
How about if we made up our own rules? Just a few important ones to help us live together without fighting.
And we'd all have to follow them, not like the king who didn't have to follow his rules.
So the 3 friends talked it over and decided on some rules. No eating apples from someone else's tree. No making fires near somebody else's house. No keeping people awake with noisy snoring. Everybody could still do what he wanted as long as it wasn't bad for someone else. Today, people who live together make rules which everyone has to follow. These are called laws. There are laws about crossing streets, about driving cars, about keeping places clean, about stealing, and about many other things. People cannot live together without good, sensible laws. That's what Shiver, Gobble, and Snore found out once upon a time when they tried to live with no rules at all.
Not to soapbox, but it makes me think about the articles I've read about the crypto libertarians who, we're going to buy a cruise ship and we're going to make it its own sovereign nation and we're not going to have any rules, or we're going to buy an island and we're going to not have any rules, and then it all collapses because it's clear that you need rules to live with people. So it's funny. Anyhow, what do we got here? We got so many things. This one is another Encyclopedia Britannica film. It's not as whacked out as that first one, Power on Wheels, but it's still pretty good. It's part of that series. It's a science series for little kids. This is called How Do They Move? Enjoy. I love it, man. Got a little jammy at the end, little electric guitar-y, and you know, there's no narration to cloud it all up and to make it all difficult for little kids. You show this, then the teacher turns to the kids and asks questions and say, like, how does this animal move and how did this move, and so this is one of those things, one of those films where it's provocative. It's intentionally trying to show things in a way that gets kids talking, and then they can write stories, they can draw pictures, they can talk in class enthusiastically about what they see. So adults can't tolerate these films a lot of times because the film's title is a question. Why aren't you answering the question? So there you go. All right, this next film has a provocative title, and it is In the Public Interest. So here's No Frames, No Boundaries. I have not seen this film, and so I'm kind of interested to see where we're going with this. All right, enjoy.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
Thousands of people, almost 10 years, and billions of dollars to lift a human being into space. Russell Schweikert, lunar module pilot for the Apollo 9 flight, recalls the experience.
Go around it in an hour and a half, you begin to recognize that your identity is with that whole thing. And that makes a change. And you look down there and you can't imagine how many borders and boundaries you cross again and again and again. And you don't even see them from where you see it. The thing is a whole and it's so beautiful. And you recall standing out there, the spectacle that went before your eyes. Because now you're no longer inside something with a window looking out at a picture. But now you're out there, and there are no limits to it. There are no frames. There are no boundaries.
What is a frame? What are boundaries? This is a boundary, a natural boundary that limits or restricts all living organisms that call it home. And this is a boundary that also restricts or limits, an artificial boundary created by man. A frame is a frame of reference, something we humans learn from the society we live in. For an animal, its frame is the same as its instinct, that remarkable biological machinery that creates a response to a stimulus, that genetic memory of how to survive. That frame, that instinct, is totally determined by the animal's environment, or boundaries, the geography and conditions which affect its very survival. The gibbon will roam only so far for its food. A small woodlot may be sufficient for the woodpecker. A swarm of bees will only establish a new hive at some distance from their old colony. And the male cricket has his little corner of the world, which is off limits to other male crickets competing with him for mates. This is territoriality, nature's setting of boundaries for survival and reproduction. In other words, animals are locked into their frames by clearly defined barriers and limitations of their environment. Unlike humankind, the animal does not contemplate new possibilities, going beyond its natural boundaries. But it does live compliant and secure within its limits, secure with the simplicity and unity of its environment. It is at one with nature. Humankind, on the other hand, has developed a mind in addition to instinct. Our frames are not only genetic, but are also learned from our society, determined by our environment and culture. Possibly that began with the tribe. Transient nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving with the herds and seasons, putting down makeshift base camps from which to hunt, grub for roots, and search out berries. As the ice ages bridged continents, these tribes migrated to every corner of the earth. And the mind, consciousness, was breaking free forever of all frames, all boundaries imposed by the environment. It was the dawn of civilization. Then, as the last glacial age receded, it left in its wake a flowering of grasses, ancestral to the grain cereals. Hunter-gatherers turned from their nomadic wandering to the more sedentary life of food gathering. And in what historians call a remarkable blink in evolutionary time, the agricultural revolution encompassed most peoples of the world. We began building our own frames and boundaries, the genesis of cultural conflict that 10,000 years later would threaten our extinction. Because now, the roots of our survival went deep into the earth, seedlings in a plot of land, to be nurtured, to be defended, to be plundered. And not just land. Now there was property, dwellings, tools, and animals, to be bought, sold, and fought over. My tools and my land turned into our crops, our village, and our people. Massive stone boundaries began to fraction society. Robber gangs became land barons, became emperors. Warfare became a way of life, an ironic, cooperative response to our fast-changing society. Land was conquered, then handed over to the warriors for their good deeds of war. Walled cities became city-states. Seagoing and land empires conquered, acquired, and ruled, setting in motion a global embroidery of ever-changing boundaries. With each boundary change came increasing complexity and sophistication in the instruments of war. At first, the club had been simply an extension of the caveman's arm to reach out further in his defense or offense. Now, it began its own evolution of killing, taking more and more lives at greater distances, with ever-increasing accuracy, at ever higher speeds, with less and less human effort. Today, there are more than 50,000 nuclear weapons, purportedly defending the boundaries of 24 countries. 6 nations are producing nuclear arms. 18 others have weapons based within their boundaries. The combined arsenals of the superpower nations, the United States and the Soviet Union, continue to grow with a relentless, frightening search for the illusion of nuclear superiority. The combined firepower of the world's 50,000 nuclear weapons is the equivalent of 20 tons of TNT for every man, woman, and child on Earth. 1 million times the explosive power of the Hiroshima blast. Enough to destroy every city in the world several times over. And the cost to defend these frames and boundaries? Let's begin with money. Just since the turn of the century, the world has spent more than $6,000 billion on war. That's 6 million. The world today is spending $500 billion a year, or $1.3 billion a day, or nearly $1 million a minute, stockpiling our defenses. The cost in human life cannot begin to be estimated accurately, let alone comprehended. There is no precedent in human experience for the destruction that would be inflicted on the planet. We drift toward global nuclear war, the last war. All of the artificial, arbitrary frames we cling to, all of the boundaries we've placed between one another, would be swept away, once and for all, by a fiery, man-made apocalypse. How would it start? Perhaps with a minor boundary dispute in the Mideast, Central Europe, or some other tension area. A dispute that would become a mini-war, and then domino into global catastrophe. Or perhaps it would start with a miscalculation, or by accident, mechanical, electronic, or human. No matter how it began, it could not then be stopped, and it would end only one way. Terms like limited war or survivability only fuel an illusion, one of victory, of winning. Old familiar frames colored by competition and heroics, but now made obsolete by our own mind, our own threatening technological genius. This time, there would be no winners. There would be no victory.
Our world faces crisis, as yet unperceived by those possessing power to make great decisions for good or evil. The unleashed power of the atom has changed everything, save our modes of thinking, and we thus drift toward unparalleled catastrophe.
There are no frames. There are no boundaries. And you think about what you're experiencing and why. Do you deserve this? this fantastic experience? Are you separated out to be touched by God, to have some special experience here that other men cannot have? And you know the answer to that is no. You know very well at that moment, and it comes through to you so powerfully that you're the sensing element for man.
The sensing element. From that immense perspective of outer space, we can gain an insight into mankind's true relationship with the universe, with planet Earth, and with all life as we know it. A new perspective for all humanity, a perspective for what Einstein had called a new mode of thinking.
There you are, hundreds of people killing each other over some imaginary line that you're not even aware of, that you can't see. And from where you see it, the thing is a whole, and it's so beautiful. And you wish you could take one in each hand and say, look at it from this perspective. Look at that. What's important? And you realize that on that small spot, that little blue and white thing, is everything that means anything to you. All of history and music and poetry and art and birth and love, tears, joy, games, all of it on that little spot out there that you can cover with your thumb. You look down and you see that surface of that globe that you've lived on all this time, and you know all those people down there, and they are like you, they are you, and somehow you represent them. You are up there as the sensing element, and that's a humbling feeling. And somehow you recognize that you're a piece of this total life.
This sense of interconnectedness, interdependence, has been spoken of in every language and faith since the beginning. Buddhism.
自分に害を与えるようなものは hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful.
Hinduism.
किसी से ऐसा व्यवहार न करो. Do not unto others what would cause you pain if done to you.
Judaism.
Ma shesanu el reacha. What is hateful to you, do not do to others.
Taoism.
我邻人所获得的，也是我所获得的。Regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss.
Christianity.
All things whatsoever ye would that men should do unto you, do ye even so unto them.
Islam.
ایمان نیاورده‌اید تا هنگامی که آنچه برای خود می‌خواهید. No one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself.
The genius of the ancients and the most modern scientific knowledge agree. The microcosm and the macrocosm are one interconnected, unified system. And we are one human family. We live on one earth. We breathe the same air, drink the same water. We have the same needs and hopes and dreams. And now, the greatest global movement in history has started. People are awakening to the urgent need to express this sense of interconnectedness, responding to the threat to this primary unity. It is time for us to change, they are saying. The use of nuclear weapons is unthinkable, unacceptable, immoral. The production of nuclear arms must stop. Nuclear superiority by any nation does not assure peace. And within this ever-expanding wave, a new sense of understanding is also being heard. If our children and their children are to live in peace, they are saying, then we must find a new way to deal with the conflicts produced by our different frames and boundaries. There are only two possibilities: life or death. Not just for one family, or group, or nation, or society, but life or death for all. If we continue to pose an enemy, strive to be always the most powerful, to conquer, to gain superiority, to win through violence and force, then the outcome is certain. Our planet and its precious life inevitably will be engulfed in destruction. But if we will move forward now, with a new spirit of inclusiveness and cooperation toward all people, all nations, all races, and all religions, understanding each other's frames and boundaries, then we can begin to bring about a world where people can live and work together in peace, on a planet surrounded not by fire, but by a spirit of goodwill for all life. There are only those two possibilities. The choice is ours.
All right, this has got some questions here. I had no idea where that was going at first. All I read was, like, from the perspective of the astronaut Russell Scheinewert, I can't pronounce his name, as he stepped out into space during Apollo 9 spacecraft. Yeah, wow. So, you know, the fear of nuclear annihilation was very palpable. So somebody says we need a mint. Let's see if I can find a mint for us. Something that will make us feel better about our lives. Because that one was kind of deep and dark. And also, honestly was visually not very interesting. It was basically a slideshow. Let's see what I can find here that might make us feel a little bit better about stuff. I have lots of things here. Something short and sweet. But that's the thing about when we watch some of these films is, no idea what they're about. And so I'm typing as I'm looking. I have a bunch of films that I've already kind of scanned, so I'm kind of looking to see if I can find something that will make you feel just a little bit better. Hopefully. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. It's you know this, but maybe you don't know this. So the Eames, Charles and Ray Eames, did some great furniture and design, and they also did some great films, including some educational films. And so most of you know Powers of 10, but this is a sketch for Powers of 10. Like, they did this before they did the actual Powers of 10 that most of you have seen. So it's kind of this interesting, weird little thing. It has similar concepts, but what's interesting is where you start. One of them starts in Florida, and I feel like one of them starts in Chicago. So here's Powers of 10 sketch. Enjoy.
We begin with a scene 1 meter wide, which we view from just 1 meter away. The sleeping man is having a picnic on a Miami golf course. As we back off, the clocks start, and we accelerate in such a way that after 10 seconds have elapsed, we will be exactly 10 times farther away. Now the scene is 10 meters wide, and in 10 seconds it will be 10 times that wide. The sleeping man is still in the center and will remain there long after he is lost to sight. After the second 10 seconds, the square we see is 100 meters wide, the distance a man can run in 10 seconds. Now a kilometer, 1,000 meters, the distance a racing car can drive in 10 seconds. The picnic is about lost as we begin to see Miami Beach. 10 to the 4th power, 10,000 meters, the distance a supersonic aeroplane can travel in 10 seconds. 10 to the 5th power, a 1 and 5 zeros, the distance a satellite in orbit can cover in 10 seconds. Our speed is growing at a tremendous rate. In these past 10 seconds, we will have covered almost 1 million meters. The Earth, that will be all but gone in about 20 seconds, looks solid and imposing and remarkably spherical. 10 to the 7th. Our speed is now about 2 million miles an hour, 0.3% of the speed of light, and growing fast. A beam of light on the same plane as Earth would travel this far in 1 second. We can now see the orbital path of the Moon around the Earth. As our speed gets to be a substantial percentage of the speed of light, it has an effect on our time scale. What seems a normal 10 seconds to us would be a much longer period in relative Earth time. Our clocks are getting out of synchronization. Now a long time elapses on Earth for each 10 seconds of our traveling time. The clock is spinning round. The light from the Sun appears, and parts of the orbit paths of some of the planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. 10 to the 12th. Considerably farther away is the outer group of planets, so that we now see our whole solar system. Because they are so much farther away from us than the Sun is, the stars seem to stand still. The entire solar system can now only be identified as light from the Sun. The ancient constellations demonstrate the direction in which we are traveling, perpendicular to the plane of the Milky Way galaxy. A supernova, an exploding star, flares. We are now 1 light year away, 10 to the 16th meters. We are approaching the distance of the closest star to the Sun, Alpha Centauri. Now our speed is so great that even the stars in the background slowly seem to change their position, converging to the center. The closest stars form a local group which gives another dimension to the sky. 10 to the 18th. As we back into the nebulous material of the Milky Way, we lose all familiarity with our surroundings. Gases and small stars of different kinds surround us. Now we are beginning to see the tremendous cosmic form of the Milky Way galaxy, of which the Earth is such a tiny and insignificant part. All the stars we see from Earth belong to this one galaxy, which in turn belongs to its local group of galaxies. These form part of a grouping system, much as the stars do. They are so many and so varied that from this distance they appear like the stars from Earth, although of course each spot of light now contains many millions of stars. Were we to continue our journey, the scene would probably now remain much the same. The spots of light might just get smaller. The trip back to the picnic on the golf course will be a sped-up reverse version, reducing the distance to the Earth's surface by 1 magnitude every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds we will appear to cover 90% of the distance back to Earth. We notice the rhythm of change between periods of great activity and relative inactivity that will continue all the way down to our next target, the nucleus of a carbon atom just beneath the skin on the hand of the sleeping man at the picnic. Enter the 9th meters. Enter the 8th, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We are back at our starting point. and now slow up on 10 centimeters, 10 to the minus 1 meters. Again, in each 10 seconds, we will cover 1 magnitude of change. 10 to the minus 2 meters, 1 centimeter, coming in on 1 millimeter. The surface of the skin looks rough and furrowed. The outside layer contains dead cells which we constantly shed and replace from within. Within the skin, the dark area we see is a tiny blood vessel, a capillary. The blood it carries is made up of different types of single cells. This cell is a leukocyte. It is self-reproducing and one of those which contains in its nucleus all the genetic material, the 23 pairs of chromosomes that humans carry. The scene is now 1 micron wide, 1/1,000,000th of a meter. Chromosomes appear to be made up of donut-shaped parts strung together. Within the chromosomes we find the genes. Each gene contains endless spirals of stringy material, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. The DNA structure contains all the hereditary information. At this scale, we build models to represent the form of the atom, from information about the components, their size and movements. This is a single carbon atom. Carbon atoms are present in every living thing. An outer shell is defined by the orbital path of 4 spinning electrons, 1 angstrom. Passing through this shell, we see an inner shell, 2 electrons orbiting to prescribe a sphere. Within the second electron layer, we find what seems like a vast nothing. In each 10 seconds, we still cover 90% of the remaining distance to the center. Finally, it begins to appear, that unimaginably dense nucleus of a carbon atom, 12 orbiting parts, 6 protons and 6 neutrons. Our galaxy is 36 powers of 10 larger than the nucleus of a carbon atom. If the diameter of the atomic nucleus were a unit 1, then the diameter of the galaxy in atomic units would be 10 to the 35th, or 1.
So that was pretty cool. Even the real version is actually really cool. And what's interesting is that there are other versions of this that are not powers of 10. There's one called Cosmic Zoom that was made by someone for the National Film Board of Canada. And there's another one that I found, which I can't remember what it was, but some of these are actually based on books. I think Cosmic Zoom was based on a book. But I love the creepy organ. And the woman narrator is I like it better than the final one, which has a male narrator. And again, it starts at a picnic. This one starts in a picnic in Florida. The final version starts in Chicago. So, anyways, lots of interesting stuff today. And I don't think I'm going to apologize for it, because that's the deal with AV Geeks, is sometimes we run across these films and some of them link together in weird ways, and it's like, whoa, that. So today's linking together was basically, let's look at the Earth from above and draw conclusions about cars, about nuclear arm proliferation, or about scale. All those things are interesting things when we look down at the Earth. So we'll be back again tomorrow. If you like what you saw, or at least it tickled your brain in some way, like something tickles your nose and makes you sneeze, I will take your brain sneeze in the form of a coffee, and you can go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks to buy us coffee. Another way is just to hit the thumbs up or the like button, and we'll be back again tomorrow to show you more stuff. I don't know, it might not be as provocative as today, but yeah. Come back and we will see you soon. Everybody take care.